drive go. There we go. Anyways, how do I say? Could be welcome to the PARAcast. I'm your host, Tomas the Boss Fernandez. These people are going to say something because I haven't checked the audio levels for the video. Robert, say something.
Hi, everybody.
It works. It's great. Joining me tonight. I thought Steve was going to be on today, so I made him an intro.
Which was anyway, because we'll do it for Steve.
He said 10 shots in 15 seconds, but the 500 Magnum only holds 5. It's Steve Koski.
Boom, 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 boom.
Paper target falls over. What are you using? 500 wad cutters. Then he carries a laser rangefinder so he can shoot them at 42 yards. It's Robert Wyatt.
Hey, you got to know what you're actually hitting at. I mean, let's get those things on there.
Hey, to break a world record, you got to know what the world record is. Am I right?
Yeah, you are right.
Back it up. And the best protection against violent criminals is having your own, said Kenny Terry.
Goddamn right.
He's the baddest mofo. Few things in the news. I think it'd be a horrible mistake if we didn't bring up the whole Eli Dickens thing out there in the malls.
Yeah, wasn't that
Indiana,
else?
Correct?
Yeah, Indiana just recently had passed their constitutional carry. You know,
this month. So he had been carrying for like 12 days or something like that. I think it was something like on the 8th or something like that. They had passed it.
What a way to pop your cherry on that one, Jimmy Crispies.
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting. So yeah, they had the shooter kid, the 20-year-old shooter kid, pop up there, and I guess he had pulled out the guns inside the bathroom, had killed 3 people inside the bathroom, and had stepped out. And the second he kind of stepped out, Mr. Dicken was posted up in between a vertical post and a trash can in the mall. So he kind of had one of those things, and did kind of a crouching horizontal barricade shot. And from all accounts, as he probably struck the guy on the first round, Mr. Bad Guy had a hard time with that, and then closed the distance on him and killed him. So fantastic. We know apparently he was Glenn Beck or whatever. Some people had talked to him, and he said that he wasn't going to do interviews till everything was kind of settled and everyone had been buried.
Yeah, I heard that
and stuff like that. So it was good on him. So word is on the street he had a Glock with some federal brass that was on the ground. Me personally, I hope he shot the guy with the Gen 3 Glock 26 with American Eagle 124 grain, just like the most basic stuff. That's what I.
No, if you're gonna do that, let's use like Winchester white box.
He's using NATO. He's using NATO white box. He wants the spiciest stuff out there. But yeah, good on him. So one of the things that's been going around, a couple things that's kind of fallen out from this. This is the ultimate Rorschach test of whether or not you are anti-gun enough that you want people to die no matter what. So there's been a bunch of people popping up on social media, and then also in the news media.
You, Shannon Watson, Mothers Demand Action, or
it was like, oh, we're really ticked off that he had a gun in there to protect everybody, and it stopped at 3 people dead. We're super mad at that.
Yeah.
Well,
the thing is so crazy about that is I read that and I'm like, are you so basically partisan that you cannot acknowledge that somebody potentially could do something good with a gun and save countless people's lives? Or are you so entrenched with your ideology that, all guns bad unless they're in the hands of cops, and then, all guns are good in the hands of cops? But
hold on,
really save us because the cops actually let us die. Oh, never mind.
Well, yeah, that's one thing, and so the other part is too. It's whether or not the cops will save us is also depending on where you're at, the level of training in your police, and then according to some people, the color of your skin, whether or not the cops are good enough or bad enough. So there's it's nothing but politics laid into it. There's a study Trafalgar did. I posted it up there on the Telegram, which
I saw that.
It's a very interesting thing of what pops up. I think we can just kind of go through it now real quick.
But that study was done before Dickens.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And even in that study, they showed that they had more faith in an armed citizen than they did with the police department. And to be fair, I mean, to be very, very fair about the whole situation, Uvalde Police Department, they deserve whatever negative they get. I suspect, and I think I'm probably fair in saying this, there are a lot of cops who are like, you mother effers, you made us all look horrible,
Yeah.
and you guys should never be cops again. So there's a lot of really good cops out there. So you kind of you have to like walk that line. But God dang it, man! Like the cops can't do anything, and the cops job and stuff like this is to show up late and fill out like body bag tags,
Well,
because
and
that's essentially what's going to happen.
generally, when you have these kind of incidents in which cops are the actual responding officers, they're generally the ones that are actually like if you like act of self-protection and stuff like that. When these cops are in these shootings where people show up, it's because the cops are off duty and perceived to be the victims of the crime too. Like they're getting held
Right.
up and people don't realize that they're cops. But anyway, the survey was Trafalgar, and it was conducted on the 7th of July through the 10th of July. So before this, after the Uvalde shooting, the general basis is that everybody is not very there's a net negativity, probably around 62% of people not confident or not confident at all at federal or law enforcement agencies being able to stop mass shootings. The interesting thing goes down there when they ask them protection during a mass shooting, what do you believe would be would best protect you and your family in the event of a mass shooting? And so the general one came out as 41% people said armed citizens, 25% said local police, 10% said federal agencies, and of course, there's a bunch of the Nancy's running around. 22% say none at all. But what's funny is when you break it down into Democrats, so 34% say no one should be doing it. Federal agents, 18%. Local police are 31%, and even they have armed citizens at 16%. But when you switch that over to the Republican Party, the GOP, armed citizens are the best protection. Stated 70% of the time, local police 16th, the federal agencies 1.6, and none of the above 11.2. So it's very, and then even with the people who are not affiliated, armed citizens are still 36%, and leading local police by 28%, at 28%. So like
Wow.
the shift in what people are looking for as far as protection, I think people know what the deal is.
Well, I think I think that a lot of this really kind of started with George Floyd, and then you saw the Summer of Love, where basically they found that the cops couldn't and or wouldn't protect the average citizen, and it started like getting in people's heads that, hey, maybe my first, last, and only line of defense is me.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're seeing all these shootings that are happening where the police come along way too late to help anything out, or the police, willfully and negligently just don't even try. And this is not just, I mean, this is hard because you have to take all of this stuff, on the whole, and acknowledge that there are good cops and there's bad cops and everything in between. But when seconds count, do you want to be having this internal debate of, well, is my particular local law enforcement going to be the good ones, or are they going to be Uvalde 2.0?
Yep.
That's a hard question that you have to ask.
Well, the other part too is it's so I just went down about a 2-hour rabbit hole catching up on all the police activity and active self-protection and what was it? A bunch of the other shooting videos out there on YouTube that kind of pop up every once in a while that was going on there. And for the most part, that's what you see in there. Most police officers are very brave, and but they're a lot of them are very capable of making a bunch of mistakes. And so some of those mistakes that they may get them in pretty bad situations, but most of them seem to be very, at least
it's almost like
holding
you're
up the
saying
line.
That maybe we should actually put more money
The
into training.
The training seems to be the issue, and generally, if you watch, 50 videos, you're going to see 48 of those videos with people with terrible grips and bad reloads and questionable tactics on there.
And that's always going to be a problem. I mean, you're never going to get away from. I mean, somebody told me this once, and it's always stuck with me. If you look at your average police officer, I mean, let's be generous and say half of the police officers, the gun on their hip is nothing more than me and a scale or a ruler at my work. It's a part of my job. It's what I use. I don't really think about it. I don't take it home. I don't pull it out and I look at it. I don't practice with it.
Yep.
It's just a part of my job. And that's the gun for most of these, for a lot of these officers. Like 50% of the, like they'll, like once or twice a year, they'll go do their qualifications and then they never use it again. That's why people are like, oh yeah, it's a cop gun. You can buy it at a really good discount. And I'm like, sold, sucker.
Yeah.
You know that the gun has holster wear more than it has shooting wear. But, and it's hard. I mean, it's a hard world.
Unless it's a trade in CZ75 where those just fall apart over time. It seems like, Robert.
This is true. This is true. Yeah.
But
I got a box full of those.
So, like, you look at skill set of police officers, and I think that's what was very interesting about this whole Eli Dicken thing, which was you hear like 40-yard shot with a handgun kills this guy, and then you're like, and he's 22 years old, and then you're like, okay, so this is going to be like new handgun shooter no matter what, and we've had all of our experiences with new shooters and longer shots, and let alone not longer shots on moving targets that could shoot back, and so you hear that, and then you're just like how amazing this was. But here's the other thing that I was sitting there thinking about. I was talking a little bit with Coco Went, which was the whole availability of information and training which is out there. It's like this guy's probably watching T-Rex arm videos and looking at what he can do to sit there and shoot. So I'd be very interested in the kind of equipment and type of Glock pistol he could be shooting. But like the general information and the skill set that's actually brought out there for these individual citizens on opposed to 10 years ago of how to conceal carry, how to handle yourself after a shooting or before a shooting. Dealing with all that kind of stuff, how to move through these kind of situations and conduct yourself properly is astronomical at the point, even to the point now that we have this 22-year-old kid who pulls a Glock out and, caps this guy pretty solidly 8 out of 10 times. Yeah. And obviously, so everyone's sitting there going through it, and then so now we have the birth of the Dicken Drill. I think it's Dicken's Drill. I guess it could be his drill.
Dickens
Drill, even though his name's Dicken.
Either way.
But yeah, so
it's Dickens Drill, so we'll give him ownership of it.
Yeah. Dickens with the apostrophe. So anyway, like Robert went out there and shot this. I went out there and shot it with Alex. I don't know if Kenny has messed around and shot this, but Kenny shot plenty of 40-yard targets before.
I've not done it yet, but I'm going to with my little 27. I'll shoot.
Yeah,
carry and everything out of it. I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
If I had brought my gold dots, I would have shot carry ammo through it. But I pulled out my Glock and I had HSTs, and I just have a box of 50 HSTs. I'd probably have 120 or something of the gold dot 124s.
Isn't that kind of funny? Like how we are as people. I mean, I know they cost a lot of money, but we go out and we buy this carry ammo because we're going to potentially shoot somebody with it. And this is not pointing fingers at anybody, but it's just kind of an interesting thing to think about. How often do we actually go out and shoot that ammo enough to know, like, this is where this ammo is going to print at a distance? And I mean, I don't shoot my carry ammo all that much. I shoot like maybe at the very most, I was telling Tommy, like maybe 500 rounds a year. But I mean, I take it out and I shoot it. I would suspect that most folks, and there's like, again, no indictment or nothing of people, but I bet you most people, they buy that box of 50 and they'll sell the gun before they'll ever go through that 50.
I had no problem sitting there and going through it back when it was go to your friend who has whatever hookup or whatever that and buy a box of 50 for $25. And now when it's a lot of times when you can only find the boxes of 20 for $30 or 25 for $30, it's a little bit kind of replacing this. But it would be a good type of drill. And I went out there and shot it, and I did all right. I did 9 out of 10. We had these VTAC targets, and of course on the VTAC targets.
Is that what those were called? I was going to ask you guys what those were.
So they had the VTAC target. So there's parts of the target which would be the D zone, but are not represented by the body. So you can have mics.
It's not the dick.
Yeah, you can have mics.
Definitely the D zone.
Yeah, you can have mics. It's the Dicken zone now. So like the arms are stuck out,
That's
but
what we call a one-stop shot.
yeah.
Oh my!
So you can have mics on the D in the D zone, and then the arms kind of stick out. So you can have a hit on an arm that would technically be a mic on a USPSA target, but it's all outlined as a human body with skeleton and all that stuff, and then it has the USPSA zone labeled out in it. And so I shot it with the dot, and then 9 out of 10, and then I shot it for the first time with the dot off with the backup irons, 9 out of 10. But I've been having this little deal where it's like I'm not as accurate as I used to be. And then after we had done that and I had set up some targets and I was like trying to do like just shoot groups at like 10 or 12 yards, I noticed that I used to be really good at finishing the trigger, like that last little bit, making sure that last little bit gets pressed straight back. Just that last little bit before the gun goes off. And I just realized I wasn't doing that. And so then my groups went from like 3 inches at 10 yards to like an inch and a half at 10 yards. And then I was just like, gosh damn it, I want to go back and shoot this thing again. But I'll bring the gold dots next time and shoot that. But it's a fun drill. People have shared it. Robert shot it. Robert, tell us about your little experience shooting it.
Yeah, actually, so what was it, Thursday night? I went out just to chronograph some ammo that I'm making up for Area 5 this coming week. And I was walking out the door and I'm like, I'm gonna take my 07. I had my little LCP or whatever, but I was like, I'm gonna take my 07. And so I just grabbed it and I'm like, well, I'm out here anyway. So I paced off 40 yards. And then timer goes off, shot it, and I had, what was it, 9 shots out of 10. I had 1 flyer. It was decent hits. I mean, 5. It wasn't great. wasn't bad. I think it seems like a lot of people are getting like 9 out of 10 hits on those things on their first go. But what I used everything that I had was straight carry. So I had my P07. It's got stock sights that I've never changed out because, to be honest with you, they're pretty accurate and they work really well. So
it's funny.
Never wanted to change them.
How little the width of the sights and what you think would be the point of aim, point of impact matter when you're shooting a man-sized target at 40 yards.
Yeah. But I had that, and then I had my 124 gold dot plus Ps that were just in the magazine. So I shot that and it was fun. I mean, I liked it. I like that as a drill because we do this stuff in USPSA all the time. I mean, we shoot long targets and stuff like that, but it's one of those drills that, I mean, for people in the USPSA community, I think it's not going to be as challenging as it would for your average tactical Timmy, but I think it's a really great way to like say, hey, are you actually accurate at enough of a distance that, if you needed to make this shot, you could do it.
Yep.
And I can tell you this. I mean, I think there's a lot of value in shooting distance. The gun actually talks to you in a different way when you're shooting farther targets.
Well,
it's weird. It's weird to say that out loud, but I believe that to my core.
So like,
totally true.
Yeah. So me right now, it's kind of weird where I am with dots and with iron sights, but I basically shot the same time with the same hits with irons and the dot, both with terribly bad trigger presses on it. But I was just like, I feel great. I feel perfectly confident sitting there carrying that gun and shooting that, and it was a lot of fun.
Do you know what's really funny though is, I mean, think of all of like the general what do you call it? The general knowledge that's been like pushed for decades now of, why do you need to have accuracy at 20 yards? Because, all your shots are going to be inside of 7 yards. And if you shoot a guy at 25 yards, you're going to jail because that's too far. And that's just murder. And we've, in one very, very high profile case, shown that an armed citizen with a firearm stopped a bad guy at a distance that most people would be pulling out a rifle at. That's pretty darn awesome.
No, well, it is pretty darn awesome, but like I used to sit there and think about this when we were sitting over and, I would talk to people about self-defense and concealed carrying about why they would actually need to improve their skills. It's like, look at all the large places you go into. You go into malls. You go into Walmart. What's the longest sight line in a Walmart? What's it automotive to produce? You know, across the automotive aisle, across the electronics aisle in the back, and all the way over to the produce. Like, how far is that shot?
Yeah.
How is it from the front door to the parking lot? How far is that shot? Like, there's nothing but long sight lines. Lowe's, Home Depot, anywhere you go, it's some department store, whatnot. And even if you're looking at what you would consider restaurant distances, if you're in the back corner to the front door, what's that distance? 30 yards in some things? I mean,
Right.
my bedroom from one wall to the master bathroom is 8 yards. If I put a small scale target up there, it becomes all of a sudden a pretty large shot. So I don't think people understand the kind of situations they are in. You go into a park, there's something that happens at a park. How long is that shot? I think a lot of that stuff
Right.
came from instructors not wanting to have a skill set that they could teach at that, and so they left it in a spot that they felt was they were comfortable in teaching in. And heck, I've been to rifle classes that didn't go more than 25 yards. Yeah.
I think yeah, no, I think you're right. But I think when you look at the average shooter, you push in a classroom setting, you push that target beyond, 7 yards. And I mean, heck, we've been in those classes where people are struggling to even keep it in the A zone at 7 yards.
Yeah.
And they're trying to zero the gun. And I don't say that with any disrespect. It's just the reality of where a lot of folks are. And so if you take your average normie, tac Timmy style shooter and you force him to do something at 25 yards, he's going to burn a magazine at it and be like, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah, well, and the other part too is if you have these distances, then you obviously might have time to run. And so I
This
think
is
that
also true. And that's something that I've always thought about.
Robert got bunny-eared. What a joke, Robert. Run your house like a man.
Yeah, I'll get the pimp slap in hand.
But, and so because like basically at that point, a lot of, let's say if you weren't the one being directly assaulted, as in the gun lined up at you and shots coming your way, and you had the opportunity to flee, the choice to engage that person is a voluntary act.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what also makes, especially in the light of Uvalde, what makes Eli Dicken, just a crazy out hero. He did have to wait for the tack shield and the body armor and the AR-15 and 20 of his friends before oh no, never mind. He just had a shirt and a Glock.
Yeah.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. And God bless him for being there. It's, we were talking about this, Tommy and I. You see the pictures of these guys that have been shooting people, and these are just kids. I mean, it's like of all the things in the world. I mean, there's this party. It's like Tommy. I mean, you said that you kind of explained it the best, but I still struggle with this idea that, I mean, you're supposed to be going in there and like protecting these people, and the people doing the bad work are kids. They're just these young kids. It's like, come on, guys.
You want to have no moral values. If we're all living in a world without God and without no moral values, and you don't want to have values in your own life or install values into your kids, don't be shocked when they find that everything is valueless. Like,
yeah,
like not a shock. The other part is too is like, the idea of 20-year-olds being killed by 22-year-olds and 20-year-olds killing everything is like, okay, for our own minds, 20-year-olds dying and killing people has been like a pretty common thing throughout history. It's like,
well, yeah, I mean that's who we send off to war.
That's what young men do. But another thing that kind of courses is that we do how we see those people, and maybe we just see them as kids because of our own age.
You know what, Tommy, that's actually a really good point. And after talking to you, I kind of started thinking about that. I mean, it's like I'm getting older, and so just that difference. I look at some of these shooters and stuff like that, and I'm like, it's not that far off from my daughter.
No, it's
and your mind is just like, you have your whole life ahead of you. Why would you do this? Craziest thing. It's the craziest thing.
Because they see no value in any other thing. And the other part is they don't see their problems with the world as the problems with them.
Yeah.
It's like, if you would fix yourself, these things would straighten out. People don't like you. There's a driver, and he made a comment to one of the female supervisors, and I was having a talk with the female supervisors where he called all women are narcissists. And And it's like, no, you have BO, you're not attractive, and you have bad takes on every subject. It's
True.
like, what's the possibility? All the women, or just the women you want to be around? And what's like, the greatest enemy everyone will ever fight is in the mirror. So, but not if
somebody should make a song about that.
the man
not something
in the mirror.
Yeah, right.
There's also a 10-year-old boy in that mirror with him. Anyways, if you want to look good as the man in the mirror, head over to DominateDefense.com. Get yourself a Mach 1 Speedball. Get yourself a sweatshirt. I'm wearing it today. You're like, Tom, it's hot, but it's thin. It's nice. It breathes. Covers me up from the sun. Keeps me ready to go. Keeps that belt. Keeps that MR 920 Combat blend model. Listen, I don't have all the money in the world. I got the blend model. Okay, let's not.
Did I ask you if the magazine is reversible or the magazine release is reversible on that?
Yes, because it is a Gen 4 type Glock.
Oh, okay, so it's decent then. Good.
Yeah,
okay.
It's decent then.
No, dude.
I'm sorry. I love the Gen 3. I love the Gen 3. This is why
I think the Gen 3 is fine. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with the Gen 3 other than I would like the ability to swap the mag release. If you can resolve that one thing, I don't complain about the Gen 3. I think it's a great gun.
I'll resolve it, Robert. Shoot with the proper hand.
Sounds like a you problem. It sounds like you're one of these.
Yeah,
it sounds like you're one of these incels that wants the whole world to correct themselves before they come to you. The one thing I love about the Gen 3 is like the polymer in the Gen 3 that kind of had like that slick kind of feel after you had grabbed it for a while, but like that feels great. I like the way that I don't like the small feeling of the Gen 4 gun, so I just love that grip of that Gen 3. And if they came out, I was like, listen, we got the Gen 6 out, and they're like, what is it? They're like, it's a Gen 3 with the Pro Cut barrel, the new barrel, not the polygonal barrel. I'd be like, take my money, thank you. Here's the gun. That's the gun of our dreams.
Just wait, because if Glock has like shown and proven anything in its history as a company, it's that Glock owners
they'll go back.
Are freaking idiots, and they don't know what they want, and as soon as you give them what they think they want, they get mad because it's like, I mean, this is seriously like new Coke, classic Coke, like every single generational cycle.
Yeah. Oh, I
say that knowing full well that I have a lot of those different iterations of the Glocks, but it's just funny.
Well, I didn't get caught up on the Gen 4. I love the Gen 3 enough not to get caught up on the Gen 4, but the Gen 5 was enough of a thing that I was like, okay, I got it.
For me, the Gen 4 was literally the answer to a problem that I didn't know I had. As soon as I'm like, oh, I can pop that with my thumb. Oh, that's actually pretty slick. Because I always did it, like with your middle finger, index finger, doing that way, and it works. Totally works.
The one thing I noticed in watching all these gunfight videos is how many malfunctions are caused by the police officers ejecting the magazine with their grip. It happens all the time. And like honestly, what Glock needs to do is come out with a paddle magazine release just for cops. Law enforcement only. Paddle like an HK so they'll stop doing that and they can live. The crazy one was a couple of these guys running SIG P320s. And of course they have the P320, and the P320 is like ergonomic, but that magazine release button is a little bit easier to hit on those things too. Remember back in the day when you get a Beretta 92 and it had that tiny little magazine release button in 1911s, tiny little magazine SIG 226, tiny little magazine release button, maybe for some sort of reason. If you like
funny. I went back to, on my CZ, my Shadow 2. It came with that paddle magazine release, and I found that if you do a table start, it was really easy to pop the mag. So I pulled them out and I went back to the standard 75s.
Yep. Yeah,
it's good.
If you want to empty your gun, use some Gallon bullets. Head over to Gallon bullets. Use your promo code PPRO10, save 10% off your order. And Precision Holsters Fast Holster, my favorite holster. PARA10, 10% off. Check them out, precisionholsters.com. Anyways, Telegram questions. We might have some answers. We might not. Listen, when you guys ask us questions about organizations, and we're supposed to find this sort of information off these things' websites, good luck. Good luck. None of these places are any damn good at posting any valuable information.
Looking at you, USPSA.
Like IDPA's website, like I have both websites open right now because I'm sitting there going through there and I'm trying to. Somebody asked us a rule about fault lines, so I pulled up the rule book and I logged in and I added a profile picture. And the IDPA website is 30 times better than the USPSA website at this time.
Oh, yeah, really nice, Tommy. Go and put a really low bar to get over there.
Listen, you can. They have little. They got a bunch of little stuff you can do on this damn thing. It's great.
I was just impressed that USPSA finally got that 1990s little GIF of the man saying, under construction. I'm happy they got that off their website.
Yeah, they did get that off their website. And remember who brought that to you? A man named Mr. Mike Foley. So anyways, and what'd we do to him? We kicked him the hell out of the sport. Anyways, Robert, go
what
ahead.
a bunch of jerks we were.
Oh, Kevin Izad also shot the Dicken Drill with his. I think he
with
had
his 365.
365, and that's pretty nice because the 365 front sight is just 2 bodies wide at 40 yards. Those damn X-ray front sights. It's just like,
Yeah, and the recoil. You need all that 15 seconds for that recoil to settle back.
You keep saying, like, I shoot Alex. It's not as snap. You make it sound like it's, what is that? What's that chambered in? 10 millimeter? That's what it looks like.
I was gonna say 20.
20.
But, I mean, 10, 20. What's the recoil of a gun when it's going up and down like that?
Normally the 20.
Robert's used to a 50-ounce gun. Everything recoils now.
Oh yeah, 150 power factor.
Robert's used to 150 power factor.
I bet you that's what that crap was. I bet you he put 150 power factor through a 365. Was like, this is too snappy. That's probably what it was. Speaking of,
baby Jesus, my hand hurts.
Speaking of which, I brought up my chrono because Coco needed to chrono, 8,038 super loads and 8,022 caliber loads because revolvers. He also shot a really good 22 caliber J frame and 22 Dicken Drill and put 4 shots in a dude's spine through his stomach. So
yeah, but I mean the recoil on a 22 revolver. The only thing that's causing the gun to bounce is your hands getting tired from holding it out there.
Yeah, well, I mean,
awesome.
They're very nice. The one thing you have to fight is the absolute horrendously heavy triggers on those 22 revolvers because it's a 22 double action revolver. But
it needs all the pounds to smack the back of that prime.
But they were pretty nice, so he did a good job. What was I going to bring up? Oh, I forget. Anyways, if I'm reminded, I'll. Oh,
yes.
He was chrono. He had some accuracy issues with the load, and he was shooting them, and there was a decent extreme spread on one of them, but one of them was 100 and he had a one that either was.
It was 920, 920, 1124
of 147 grade. It was a 165 power factor, 147 out of a Glock 34.
I don't actually see a problem with this. I mean, I call that Tuesday.
Listen. There's 150 rounds, and so Robert was saying, shoot it. Might be a chrono error, and I'm going here listen. If one of those cases you get is weak, and it's got a charge in it like that, goodbye. You might have to say goodbye to the bottom part of your Glock, trigger bar gone, magazine catch gone, magazine pooped out on the floor.
This is why we shoot metal guns. They'll absorb all that. Ken, you know what I'm talking about there.
No.
No, I do not. I don't.
So I told Alex, hey, just dump 30 charges and measure each one individually and see if you get a super high one. If you get a high one, if you get a 4.9 or a 5.0 out of tight group for 140, or, a 4.4 or something like that, because I think it's 3.2 or whatever it's supposed to be loaded. If you get a super high one, pull those damn bullets. If you
the
don't,
funny thing, I just thought of this. Tight group can't even push those numbers. I mean, it has no top end on it. It burns so hot and so fast that it's you're going up in the curve, and then it just flatlines, and you can keep dumping more powder in, but it just doesn't go up. It just doesn't go up anymore.
No, you'd be basically what would be the danger then? The pressure in the case from the amount of powder
in the case.
Yeah,
but you're certainly not going to get more velocity out of it. That's always been the downside of tight group. It's great in that sport competitive shooting world or range, but as soon as you kind of
You're
push
not.
it beyond what the
Yeah.
threshold of that particular firearm is, because it'll still shoot like 45, 40, all that sort of stuff, but it's inside of the realm of what that's going to work inside of.
If you're trying to make supersonic 147s, it's not your best choice.
No, you need a longer barrel to do that.
God, I miss unique. I want 8 pounds of unique.
I got 8 pounds of unique.
So freaking good. Such a great powder. Such a great powder.
There.
Right there.
Yeah,
he's
right
pointing. There. Anyways.
What's your address again, Robert? Just
so we know.
1637. Go fuck yourself, Lane. Remember we talked about this last week.
Right. Well, it's a good thing he doesn't have a concealed carry permit in California, because Botas or whatever his name is would have just released it. Anyways, let's get to some questions.
This one came in. It was off the Telegram, but it says, "What value is PSI Practical Shooting Insights providing to the sport and the organization?"
So I just started following them, I think, on Thursday or Wednesday, so I haven't had a chance to hop in and read it. Oh, sorry, I've had a chance. I've been going to the swimming pool, playing video games, and running.
It's a rough life.
It's a rough life.
That's
this month off. I can't tell you the panic I have every morning, not knowing what I'm going to do. Anyways, Robert, what do you think about
it? So yeah, it's is it providing value to the organization? Well, so I mean, it's an Instagram page run by Derek Lewis out of Tennessee, and he started supposedly Derek Lewis out of Tennessee. Maybe it's not, who knows? But he started up as this idea of exposing cheaters, and I think everybody was all on board with that. But then he morphed from reporting the news to starting into the creating the news, and it's now just turned into this giant. Like they put out allegations about things that happen, whether they happen or not isn't really the thing. It's essentially trying to whip up like a fury among the 3 or 4 people, the 3 or 4% of the people in the organization. So I don't know. I mean, do they provide any value?
Well, I saw some stuff going through some of the laws of, I forget what state that they were going through, and whether or not some of the magazine laws would pop up in there, and like some of that stuff can be decent.
Here's the question. I mean, not speaking to anything that he's bringing up. It's more to the idea of you have basically one person who is accusing the organization of something, and the organization essentially not responding to it. So you only have one side of any story at any given time, which means that you're essentially playing the game of let's try these people in the court of public opinion, which, that's always going to be a problem. I mean, if all you ever saw was, what the media told you about Kyle Rittenhouse, you'd think that Kyle Rittenhouse drove across state lines to murder black people.
I can't believe he got away with it.
Yeah, me neither. but that's the problem, is when you actually when you hear both sides of the story, you realize whether what is being reported is true or not, there's a lot more nuance to the things that are being said. And so then it comes back to what does this actually provide in terms of value to the organization? And I'm kind of thinking not much, because we have all of our local matches, and everybody, you go to any local match and nobody's sitting there talking about the latest thing that Ben Stuge or Practical Shooting Innovations or whatever is called, whatever they're talking about. They're talking about, hey, how are you going to shoot this stage? They're there to shoot. They're there to show up with their buddies. Yeah. USPSA is still like just amazingly fun, but you have like, it's kind of like what you see with a lot of the woke movement, where you have like this very, very tiny percentage of a population that screams really, really loud about all these things. And if you don't know any better and you don't know the percentages, you're like, oh man, there must be a whole lot of problems in this thing. And it's like, no. So it's like less than 50 people that are pissed off about something.
Yeah. There's some real issues with USPSA, like the whole cameo thing. Like that's a real issue. That's something that, but it seems like there's a lot of stuff that's being brought up over nothing.
It is an issue, but is it really that big of an issue? Well, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I mean, maybe you don't want people going into a state that has magazine restrictions. Well, here's the problem. They've been running those matches. They've been running very big major matches for years, for a long time. This thing was built around the idea of doing it. And so Colorado has this magazine restriction, but is it really something that is enforced? Now, some people are going to say, we don't care. The law is the law, and we are pro-gun, and we support every gun law out there, and all gun laws are perfect. And thank you, sir. May I have another infringement? Other people, like me in the West, I mean, we're like, well, yeah, you guys made a law, but nobody enforces it because that's just not how it is. And so everybody has their level of comfort and willingness to accept risk. And I get that. And I don't mean to disparage that against anybody, but at the same time,
having a major
been running these matches for
yeah.
a long time, and nobody cared until one day somebody decided to dime out the organization and say, hey, by the way, did you guys know that they're doing these illegal things?
Yeah,
and then suddenly it becomes an issue.
I think we've all of a sudden run into the. Well, it's kind of interesting is that like we've kind of run into the making news to make news. Like have your name out there.
That's what PSI is.
Get your name out there. Get your thing out there. Make news. It's like we can't even get a clear indication on when we should vote on the runoff on the front page of the website.
Right. And that's, I don't know. It's kind of the weird world we're in. And it's hard because I mean, I think when PSI started out, it was actually USPSA Insights when it started out. It felt like they were doing a lot of really good things. They were taking a look at some things that were coming up as far as classifiers, the Tony Cowden type stuff like that. And you're like, okay, this makes sense. But it's like in the back of your head, you're like, okay, well, where's the end of this? Because
Yep.
that's always the thing. I mean, as soon as the camel gets his nose under the tent, there but for the grace of God or whatever.
Yep.
That's the problem is they did this thing and there was value, and then they started feeling their oats. And at that point, they're like, well, what else can we find? And eventually you start running out of legitimate things and you start grasping at smaller things that have value, but maybe not so much. Maybe there's some nuance that needs to go into it. And then it's just it just snowballs on itself. And eventually people are sitting here playing this game of, well, man, there's just all these things wrong with the organization. We can't do USPSA anymore. And it's like, dude, take a step back, go to your local match. How's that match run? Well, it's really fun.
The organization must be torn down. It must be started over.
Well, that's the problem is you have people like Ben Steger who, used to be a competitor in USPSA, and he gets there and he says that, we should burn the entire organization to the ground because why? I don't know, because Ben Steger needs to whatever.
I think there's enough practical shooting experience out of the people who would listen to Ben Steger's podcast and that kind of stuff. Like, if you want to create your own perfect utopia shooting organization, you have more than enough means and more than enough support to do so.
I don't think Ben Steger's capable of that, though. I think he's a happy person if he's mad at the world, and if he can be narcissistic and tell everybody, hey, come look at me, then he's going to keep doing that. But the question is, do you let him do that as a member of the organization, or do you say you can say whatever you want, but you're not going to be a part of it? It's the same idea as if you have an employee working at McDonald's and he's sitting there in the front talking to all the people. Matt, geez, McDonald's sucks. You guys should go eat.
Well,
Burger
it's
Burger
different.
King's so much better.
It's different because the role's actually reversed because he's actually a customer of USPSA. So
then
it's more likely it's like
doesn't have to have him as a customer.
Well, he's buying 10 Big Macs and he's getting other people to buy 10 Big Macs, and he says, "Go to Burger King. Burger King's way better than this. By the way, listen, I can help you eat Big Macs faster."
Yeah. And that
I mean,
there is a lot of truth.
Well, there's people
Ben Steger, his whole thing is trying to promote his training company.
Correct.
And he does that on the back of USPSA.
Yeah. and he's bringing the
The
money.
same
So,
USPSA that he's denigrating.
yeah.
It's the craziest world. But,
Eat Big
I mean,
Macs
that's
faster. Here we go. But like, there's people who have created entire shooting organizations because they wanted more or less magazines. They wanted what kind of gun you could shoot in this division and what kind of gun you wouldn't shoot in this division.
Right.
But we seem to have a lot of people who are like criticizing USPSA. It's fine.
People who don't shoot USPSA anymore.
Criticism's fine. Criticism's all fine, but it's just like,
I don't know.
do your own thing.
Well, but they won't. They won't. Because,
Correct.
Because then it puts all of the ownership of the success and the problems back on their shoulder, and then they can't blame somebody else.
Well, the one thing with critics, the one thing that always happens with critics is they don't want to lose a following or start something new, start their own utopia. You know why? Because their own utopia doesn't have followers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They have to have the followers of the organization that they're criticizing.
They have to steal followers from the organization in order to have something. It's frustrating, and the problem with all of this is, I mean, and I know we're talking about it, but if you let all that stuff like consume you, then you will think that what is ultimately a relatively small problem is bigger than it is, and it will allow you to stop liking. You'd be like, I'm sick of all the drama in USPSA. Yep. I can't stand all this. I hate all this thing that's happening. I just want to go shoot a match. Cool. Go shoot a match. Get back to the thing that you love the most about USPSA. Showing up to your locals, shooting with your buddies, having a great time, and you're going to go shoot your sectionals and some of the area matches where by and large they're all generally ran extremely well. All of this other stuff is off in the ether, and it doesn't really affect you down on the local level.
Yeah,
it's the craziest thing. I mean, it's like they said this about a lot of organizations, but like, the outside influences, like gun owners. The gun owners will never be destroyed from outside influences. It's all of us destroying ourselves. We're the ones that are going to destroy it.
Yeah.
And if we stop paying attention to that, we down on the local level are the single most important thing, and we pay attention to all this outside stuff, we're going to let it destroy us, and we shouldn't be that way.
Yep. Well, that's the loss of constructive criticism. Kenneth, any thoughts?
No. Don't follow it. Don't look at it.
All right,
You're probably the smartest one.
We're gonna break 21 words from Kenny this episode. I swear to God, it's coming.
It'll happen. Trust me. I promise. Right there's at least 7 words.
There's at least 7 words. Go F yourself. That's only 4 words.
But if I say that 7 times.
I like the way you think, sir. From Kevin Isaac, best gun to shoot production that's not a Shadow 2.
Kenny.
Glock 34.
Why?
Beretta 92. Canic. Oh shit, I don't know any of them.
Well, I would. So like, in a world, I feel like the movie announcement. In a world,
and so many choices. How does one man decide? Which gun has 5 magazines?
There's so many like great production guns you can sit there and get into, and there's guns that have cheap magazines, and there's guns that have all the aftermarket support. But like a lot of the things that you might think about now are things that you didn't used to have to think about before. Is like, well, how do I dump a bunch of weight into this gun?
I don't think you need.
That doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It's perceived. The key question here isn't how do you dump a bunch of weight into it. It's how do you create the best balance.
How do you create? And so, in order to have let's say you want to create an ideal balance for an ideal load you have, or whatever like that, you would like to have the option of putting in or taking out certain things to make a weight or have some aftermarket support. And if you're not going to shoot like a Shadow, like you can diet a Shadow 2 down to what, 41 ounces?
Something like that. I mean, if you cut it up enough, you could get it lighter.
And you knock the sights off, you can get it down to 40. You know, like
you could just shoot a Shadow. I mean,
you know, it's like I really like the M&P. I really like the MP. It's very accurate, very reliable, fantastic magazines, great aftermarket. Except for there's no way of getting any sort of, if you want to add weight to it or do something else as far as parts. Like there's no grip plug strap like there is on the Glock.
Well, if you want to put weight into it, I know this guy. He's actually a really good dude. But if you talk to him, really nice, he can actually make you a guide rod. His name's, let's see, was it Kevin
Izzato?
Yeah, Izzatio.
Tall Japanese fellow.
Yeah,
Izzato.
Yeah, crazy. Has this like W74 guide rods or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, so that's cool. But like on an M&P, that would just be in the front end. So like there's certain guns like you can add weight, but you can't add it where you want. And so like Glock 34, Glock 17, I think that's a very hard thing not to do.
Tommy, I think honestly, our organization, the game we play, this sport, it just leans on this idea of innovation and trying and testing and doing different things.
And we all love the innovation until it affects our division.
Yeah, and then we get all pissed off about it. Like everybody likes it. Everybody's like, "Oh, you should shoot a 1911." Okay, we'll take a magwell off of it. Oh no, we can't do that.
We can't do. It's like, what about optics and limited? Get the F out of here. You understand me? I wanted my 60 ounces, but when you start talking about putting dots on these guns, get out.
But I think what's cool though is eventually you find it's not finding the gun that weighs the most or does this or does that. It's finding the gun that like works for you, that makes you happy, that makes you want to go out and actually like spend time on the range and shoot it a lot.
Yeah.
And whether that's Glock 34 or the Canics, which I think are some really fantastic offerings right now, whatever gun makes you want to go shoot, that's the best production gun right now.
Yeah, if the equipment's good for it, and then like you have the crazy thing is like right now it's like it's so good to find a decent system. Like you can even find systems like the P320, which you can buy as a $490 iron-sighted gun, and then literally convert into a 50-ounce blaster if you wanted to do that, or you have it basically essentially 29 ounces. There's a ton of stuff that you can do. For not even like I like Glocks. I don't like them a whole hell of a lot, but I do like anything I want to do with them. I can do it with. But
I sure like those Canics.
The Canics are nice. The new ones are very nice.
I think right now today, I honestly believe the Canic probably has the best offering for a person getting into production if that's where they wanted to go, because the magazines are relatively cheap. They're almost Glock cheap.
They're hard to find. They're a little hard to find.
Metal.
Yeah,
but they're metal.
Yeah,
and that's awesome. If the Glock mags have one problem, it's just that they're that polymer or whatever, and so they just have their own issues. But it's a fantastic firearm. It's priced extremely competitively. Many of the guns out of the box already come with the fiber sights that you would need. The trigger is amazingly good.
Yep.
I think it's just a fantastic offering. But yeah, Kenny, a Glock 34. How can you ever go wrong with a Glock 34?
All you need is something that's reliable and good enough aftermarket parts.
Yeah.
To make it comfortable for you.
I mean, there's honestly it would be hard to go to any major manufacturer. Like Walther's got a great option. Yeah. Canic, Smith & Wesson, Glock. I mean, there's even stuff that you would see that would be kind of like not some of the big things that you would see. Most likely you're going to have a reliable, fantastic pistol out there. This is what I would say. I would say buy the oddest one you think you want to play around with, and then just be ready to resell it, because you'll always be able to get into the Canic or the Glock or whatever. Just take a wild shot. Take a wild shot. See if you like it. You'll be fine.
Yeah. This is an interesting question from Mark Brando. I'm not sure how to answer it, but he says there are 2 IDPA rules. I'd like your guys' perspective and see how your clubs are running them. I had a couple old timers saying they called HQ on these. Number 1, do the fault lines go to infinity? And number 2, can you shoot through the nested fault lines? I'm not sure what that means, but he says my take on the first is that the lines there to limit the position of the shooter and should be between 3 to 8 feet long. The rule book doesn't say anything about infinity.
Yeah, so I read all the rules on fault lines 3.6, and it says nothing about infinity. So a nested fault line would be, let's see here, nested fault lines are kind of intersecting fault lines. And so that's kind of the interesting thing is like the fault lines are supposed to be 3 to 8 feet long, but there's nothing that says that they extend out to infinity. And if they did extend out to infinity, which basically means you could have a set of fault lines, like if you have a 10-meter wide, 10-yard wide course of fire, right, and it has fault lines on, at 2 meters on one side and 9 meters at the other side. And those fault lines extend outwards. Like technically everything would be inside the fault lines, or everything's not inside the fault lines. So this is kind of a weird thing. It's like, so if fault lines extend out to infinity, there's got to be some fault lines that you would be actually shooting from outside of cover, but then you would just claim that you were inside the other fault lines that show that you were shooting from inside of cover.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I didn't think of it that way, but that does make sense. It doesn't.
Well, like if I'm shooting at a back position, and if the fault lines extend out to infinity, does that mean that if the fault lines extend out to infinity, that the forward port of the fault line extends out to infinity? Or does the fault line that's in front of that shooting position that extends back into infinity, does that cover me? And if these fault lines have no start and end point, then technically, what are the two most downrange fault lines on either side? And if you're within those, aren't you shooting within cover? And as far as intersecting fault lines go, if you have two intersecting fault lines and you're on one side or in the middle of it or on the outside, depending on where the targets are, then you could just shoot everything from inside those targets. And I don't believe that's what they had. If they wanted it in the rulebook, IDPA is very great about adding things into the rulebook, and until they're in the rulebook, I would call it the length of the fault line. 3 to 8 yards. If it's 5 feet, then your fault line is 5 feet back.
Yeah, it's such an interesting question. I mean, because gosh, sometimes it seems that the people that try and range lawyer stuff like this generally aren't that good as shooters in the first place, and they're just trying to figure out how to like get some kind of an advantage, and they're trying to sneak their way through it. I know that sounds really, really mean. I don't mean it that way, but sometimes it kind of feels that way. And it's like, dude, we know what's going on here.
Well, yeah,
just shut up and shoot the stage.
So like 3.6.4.1, this is like, if this doesn't tell you how it should actually go, and let's say IDPA comes back and say, hey, they do extend to infinity, it's just kind of weird. But it says fault lines are used to ensure a shooter is behind cover when engaging targets from a shooting position or position of cover. There will only be one fault line at each position, and that line applies to all targets visible from that point of cover. So it's like, okay, if I'm back away from cover, does that mean I'm still in cover from the target shooting at me? Yes. But like the one thing that we're actually trying to do here without stating that we're trying to do here is have shooting positions. And so, I mean, you could have infinite line of shooting positions, and you're going to have to get guys who are better at making stages and basically put their USPSA hat on to make sure that those targets can't be engaged from other spots.
Crazy. Moving on. Let's see. Thoughts on trying to proliferate suppressors on carbines in PCC/2 gun?
Get rid of the NFA.
Yep. Get rid of the ATF. I think suppressors on your rifles are a fantastic idea. I absolutely love them. It makes shooting so much fun. The biggest downside is you just have to make sure that your timers will pick them up, and if they do, this is the same. The whole can the timer pick up the suppressor is the same argument we had with PCCs in the early days of PCC in USPSA. Can they be picked up? And what you find is that if it's there and it becomes a part of the game, the ROs very, very quickly learn how to position themselves in such a way so as to pick them up, because it's not dead quiet.
Yeah.
You just have to make sure you're in a good position. And if you do that, they're fun. I think they're absolutely fun. And as somebody who has a suppressor and doesn't get a lot of opportunities to use it, I find anytime I can bring my suppressors out and shoot them in a match setting, why not do it? Let people have the most fun possible.
In PRS, how many guys are running suppressors?
Maybe like 2 or 3 a match.
Out of how many shooters?
80.
Well, didn't you say that the recoil changes drastically with the suppressor?
Yeah, good muzzle brakes will dampen the recoil more than the suppressors will.
Okay. And so would you suspect that's actually the reason more so than any other?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
They want to
Okay.
game it just like USPSA. They want to. That's the reason they're running 26-pound guns. They're trying to get the minimal recoil. So if muzzle
Gotcha.
brake does better, they're going to run that over suppressor.
Well, and like, imagine whatever rifle you have. Add a suppressor. You're now on the next right up. You got a nice 10-inch, 11-inch. Put a suppressor on. What is that? That's a 16-inch gun. Yeah, 16-inch gun. What is that? It's a 20-inch gun now. I mean, and like, what is it? Oh, all the weight's on the front end. Unless you spent $1,400, and guess what? There's still more weight on the front end. It's a little bit lighter, but when we're hanging, even the light ones in 5.56 and stuff like that, when we're hanging 10, 11, 12 ounces off the front of the gun, will that hurt transitions? Possibly. Am I going to get more felt recoil than if I have a 14-inch gun with a muzzle brake? And it's handier when I'm moving around obstacles and barricades? I believe you could make a case and get more people to pay the $200 to make SBRs to make them be able to flow through stages better than you would at people trying to save each other's hearing by putting a can at the end, because the advantage isn't there. Especially when you get guys shooting larger, heavier calibers that automatically, like guys shooting AR-10s. The gun's 40% larger to begin with. And then like put a can on that. It's like, do you want that? It's like, no, I want it as light and as low recoil as possible. I don't think any one of us, especially if we're shooting USPSA, like we all hate the open guy shooting the comp gun. He doesn't dislike it at all. Yeah. He likes it.
Yeah. But having had a 14.5-inch rifle with a muzzle brake go off a foot and a half in front of my face, I very much would have appreciated that suppressor.
Yeah.
And so,
but you're not. But once again, you're not the one shooting it.
No. I know it went right in front of my face. It sort of sucked.
Yeah.
No, so let me ask you: Are you saying no to suppressors, or
I'm saying that there's no.
Care?
I don't. I would listen. I would like a world where everyone could have a 16-inch gun that was integrally suppressed, and it was all good in the hood. Fine, but I don't think you're going to like, hey, let's all shoot USPSA with suppressors on our handguns. And we'd be like, can we shoot them without the suppressors? And then it would be like, yes. And then how many of us take the suppressor off our handgun? Almost all of us. The draw would be slower. The recoil impulse would be worse. The transitions would not be as good. And so when we're going into the competition world, it's like, well, what does this do for me?
That actually comes back to what do you want out of the game or the sport?
Yeah.
For like me, I bring the rifles out because I never shoot them. I mean, in a year, I'll shoot maybe 1,000, 2,000 rounds of 223, and I'll shoot many times that 9mm pistol. And so when I bring those rifles out, it's like, well, which rifle? When I go through the safe and I'm looking at all my 223 rifles, I'm like, which one's coming out? My eyes always go to the one with the suppressor on it because that's my bump in the night gun.
Yeah,
it's fun, and that's why I'm there.
Because there's a higher purpose than the competition that brings you to use it.
Yes,
there's a higher purpose.
That's the best way to say it.
Kenny, what's the highest purpose at a PRS match?
To win.
To win.
Yeah.
What would you like to do to win? Hey, you know what's probably loud? Large caliber rifles with brakes on them.
Oh yeah.
That's probably loud. And you know who cares? Nobody.
The RO.
Yeah. The guys next to you. Other than that, nobody.
You mother scratcher.
I mean, if you wanted to, like, to answer your question, if you wanted to encourage it, create a suppressed division.
From JC. How much attention do you give your match finish from the overall results, or do you only look at the division you are shooting?
Kenny, that's a good Kenny question.
Club match, I'm looking at overall because there's not enough GMs in one division for us locally. So I got to look at overall to know how my performance was. At major matches, only my division. I might look at overall out of curiosity to major match, but really to major, only my division matters. Just a club match, I look at overall to judge my performance.
Well, and you're normally the 100% guy at the match. So you're actually looking at the guys that finish below you to see the separation as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I can win a match and still not shoot well. So understanding the separation between can help show how bad I shot still.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, and so like generally that's kind of the deal. Like we have a lot of master level carry optic shooters. But if I want to know, like let's say there's a world that has better shooters than it currently exists at our club. Like I would always look at the overall to see how I'm at Kenny. Like if I'm at like 88% of Kenny, I've had a great day. Like life's going great. I am competing at a level which people should not be able to compete again, at. It's just too advanced. It's too advanced. And so like it's all very competitor dependent, I would believe. Robert?
At a local, I literally only look at the overall. That's all I ever look at.
Yep.
At a major match, I'm same as Kenny. I look at what the division is, because it's just too spread out. You can't get an accurate judge of where you are.
Well, and even so, let's say like you don't even have those kind of options.
That, and also when I look at a major match in the overall, there's a lot more scrolling that has to go on before I find myself.
That's what the search button's for.
That's
right.
It's
too much.
Well, and the other game is like there's a third option out. It's not division and it's not overall.
It's
like we have practice score competitor. So we have the what if. So now we can take the person who's higher on the overall and convert them into minor or major hit factor. And we can, minor or major power factor. And then we can make that shooter's performance tailored to what it would look like in our own division. So it's like we have something better than overall, and we have something better than stages. We literally can make it a direct one-to-one comparison, especially when we're talking about high-capacity shooters and other high-capacity divisions. It's a lot harder in single stack and prod and revolver to kind of mingle that, but you could say like, what's the reload and stage plan? What is that worth? Maybe 7%, 7 or 8%. So then you could kind of base it off of that. But like we have it's like we don't have to play that game anymore. It just takes you the 6 minutes to convert the other person and take a good look and diagnosis at it.
Yeah.
Let's see. From Aaron Lawson, do you actually look at the USPSA magazine? USPSA has a magazine.
Kenny, do you read it?
Occasionally, not very often.
I put them on my nightstand like I'm going to.
Yeah.
And then once I get about 4 months old, hit the old trash can. The third issue I'm behind in, like what was the one that had everyone with 22s on the cover? I was like, I'm gonna read that. That's in the trash.
It's hard. I mean, who looks at magazines anymore? I mean, really? I mean, who goes out and is like, oh, I'm going to get me a magazine subscription to...
Well, it's like, read this article or watch something on TFB TV on YouTube. What is it? Sexy camera angles? Great commentary?
Yeah, but the articles anymore, they're not topical. They're so old by the time they actually put them out. It's like, well, yeah, we actually read that in the newsletter that you guys sent out 3 months ago. So why are we reading this now? And I don't mean that with any disrespect. I think, honestly, I just think the times have changed, and I get it. I mean, I make, like, they make advertising money selling the magazine, and how you determine those numbers is
they don't make advertising for selling the magazine. They tell people they have this many people with eyes on the magazine because we get it for free with our thing. They don't sell it.
But that's how you sell your advertising. Is you're like, well, how many people? What's your publication? Okay, well, we have 100,000 people. Well, this is how much money you can make in advertising in our magazine. This is how much we can charge. And so if they say, well, we have 100,000 people that actually view this thing every month, even though, say, at best maybe probably half the people actually are looking at that magazine, then they're like, it doesn't matter, because they can say, well, this is how much you have to pay us for advertising space in the USPSA magazine. And so USPSA puts like a couple articles in there about whatever, and then they just fill it up with advertising because you get all your revenue there.
Well, this is what I don't get.
Which is fine. I don't care what they do. I don't want it. I don't need it.
I care about what they do because like we're spending money on this.
Well, no.
Nobody reads magazines. Take your same take your same people. Take your same people, your little writers, have them Don't be flossing in here. I'm recording a podcast. This isn't a place of dance.
This is a high level production here.
But like you have all these. Take your contributors. Buy them lav mics. Have them film a segment. Put a 45-minute episode on YouTube. Email it to all your members. You will get more people who will sit there and watch that or listen to the damn thing than will ever open up the book. And guess what? Publishing on YouTube is free. Publishing magazines, I'm guessing, still costs money. Why are we doing this? Listen, if you got on...
Because of the ad revenue. That is the only reason they do it. There are so many magazines out there where they will literally print the magazine and throw it in the trash because they make the money on the ad revenue.
Sell the ad revenue for the damn thing and say that's getting pushed out to all of our people. I don't think that this is like hard. And like, listen, what's cooler? When's the last time you read a review on a handgun or rifle you wanted to see? Like that's like the fourth review you read. The first three are videos on the same damn topic.
Dude, I go look online.
Hi, that's funny. Would you like to read about a 10mm Smith & Wesson, or would you like to watch a 10-minute video on a 10mm Smith & Wesson MP? Let me think. How much recoil does it have? I'll read the article about this guy's perception of it when I can just see the video and see he's got a bad stance anyway, and it probably has less recoil than he's showing. Like, there's a bunch of other ways to do this. Kill damn Front Sight magazine. Like, hey, they call 2020 a news magazine. It's a TV show. Let's do the same damn thing.
Yeah, and functionally, we talked about this, but if you want to not have to pay for the magazine, you can sign up as an associate member. And USPSA has done a lot of work to try and hide that from people. But you can absolutely go be an associate member. It gives you all the benefits without the magazine, and that's fine. That's totally fine if you want to do that. I don't care if that's what you want to do. That's what I've done.
Yeah,
because I don't read the magazine.
I'll still pay the $40.
Happily.
I'll pay the $40. I think
USPSA offers a lot of value.
And the advantage for me will be that there will be more room in the trash can.
Yeah.
And I might have a cool video. Do that. Yemin, you're listening. Bruce Wells, if you're listening, you probably don't listen to this podcast. But if you do listen...
I'm certain he doesn't at this point.
Do that. Do that.
They can't. I can just tell you, they're going to look at the amount of money that comes in off of it, and they're like, no, we're keeping this.
Just do whatever. Produce it anyway.
This is literally like philosophy teachers in college. Like, hey, I'm going to go get a philosophy degree. Cool. What are you going to do?
Teach philosophy.
Teach in college. Well, okay. What job does that get you in the real world? It gets you a job teaching philosophy. So we're basically just training people to teach philosophy and continue the same problem forever. Yes. Got it. Yeah, that's just, I don't know. From JC, how do you shoot holy monkey swingers? I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, I don't know what that.
Holy monkey swingers.
How do you shoot swingers? Maybe like how do you shoot? Let's try it this way. How do you shoot swingers? Well, I make sure that one of them's not my wife, and then.
Is he talking about what's that target Farley called? It's a swinger, but it rotates while swinging.
The winger.
The winger.
The winger.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think any of them you shoot the same way as you shoot a standard swinger, and you just track it through its rotation.
And if you can't figure out if you have a hard time tracking it in practice with a dry fire target, Go Fast Don't Suck sells a little swinger thing that you can buy, and it will help you to kind of develop the tracking if you don't have access to a swinger at your club. It's a good stopgap if you don't have it. Otherwise, you can just stand there and just sit there and move back and forth. It's the same general concept.
So swinging targets, Kenny.
Yeah.
Is there any bit of a lead that you're putting on the A zone? Are you holding dead center of the A zone, or are you holding the leading edge of the A zone that is, how would you say this? That is on the edge of the direction it's moving. So if it's moving left, you're holding on the leftist edge from your perspective of the A zone. Or are you holding dead center A zone the whole time?
I hold dead center A zone, and for me, the biggest thing to make sure you get the dead center hit A zone is don't stop the gun when you make the trigger press.
Mhm.
Make sure the gun stays moving with the target when you make the trigger press. And to me, the easiest way to do this is not even shoot a swinger. Just go set up a swinger and activate it like a stomp pad or something, and just track it with your gun over and over and over before you ever fire a shot, and get used to keeping the gun moving the entire arch of the swinger.
That's how I figured it. That what you just said. That's how I figured out how to finally shoot him.
Yeah.
Because I would see it coming through, and I basically stop the gun, and then fire. But by the time
And then you
Charlie
shoot Charlie
Perez,
Deltas.
yeah, Charlie Perez told me this. It says when you stop that gun, it's in the A zone. But by the time the brain tells the finger to pull the trigger and the bullet gets there, you're Charlie Delta every time. And he was totally right. And so like I actually just did it and just cut it in dry fire. Just figured out that tracking movement and following it through. And as soon as I developed that feeling, the sensation of basically you following that through the track, all those Charlie Deltas turned into Alpha Charlies.
Yep.
And I was like, I will take an Alpha Charlie every day compared to the Charlie Delta or even the Delta mics.
Yep. Yeah, and then so if you're seeing a swinger at a match, when they activate it, make sure you're paying attention to where the target is in relative of what it's swinging over. Some people put the target right close to the barrel. Some people put the target high over the barrels.
Is there at any point or any kind of, do you ever fall back on trapping the target? So let's say like somebody comes out with something at a nationals and it has a crazy erratic pattern you haven't been able to practice. Do you fall back to trapping the target?
Yeah, I mean, like if it's advantageous, surely. But I think once you get used to tracking, there's like even wingers that move a ton. Tracking them is not hard. The only time I'll trap them is pretty much if I'm forced to.
If what I've noticed that I will always try and track them. The only thing that changes is my ability to get 2 shots on it on a single pass. If it's going too fast, I'll track it through the first, track it through the second, and then be gone, or something like that. But that's how I change it. That's the only difference is I'm always trying for a good 2.
Yeah.
But sometimes, like especially at some of these majors, they get those suckers moving pretty quick. And so it's like, okay, well, I know I can get one good one on a pass. And so I'll eat the time. It's a half second to a second for it to come back, because then I'll have my 2 shots of known. That's how I look at it, but I could be totally wrong.
No, I think you're absolutely right.
Or
you shot like clay pigeons and stuff in your time, it's the same way, right? You never want to stop the shotgun when you're shooting clays. You keep the gun moving. It's the same concept.
Makes sense. All right, last question. From Chris the Barbecue Rambler. That's a dang awesome name. The California Attorney General posted personal information of California CCW holders online, including name, address, driver's license numbers, etc. My info was on that list. I'm curious what you guys think I should do about this, especially Robert. Is it Killdozer 2 time? It's always time for Killdozer. Always time. How is this even a question?
Yeah, the Attorney General, Rob Bonta. Take a guess on the party.
Well, do you think it was intentional, or was it just one of those things of somebody was just being a dum-dum?
Well, so they had like this, so they had the Supreme Court thing go through, and then they were talking about, they have the 2022 firearms dashboard portal went live on Monday with publicly accessed files that included identifying information of those who have concealed carry permits. The leaked information includes the person's full name, race, home address, date of birth, date of their permit was issued. The data also shows the type of permit issued, indicating if the permit holder is a member of law enforcement or a judge. So that's kind of one of those things you don't like to do, no matter what political party you are, is anger the judges.
Mm-hmm.
So like that's not something you would try. So my guess is that like they wanted to have like this. I think they wanted to get as close to it as they could without stepping over the line. So I think they wanted you to be able to kind of look up how many concealed carry permits were probably in your area, all the stuff, the sheriff, all that jazz to do it. And I think either it's very hard to tell what's politically motivated and intentional and what is not. They said we are investigating we are investigating an exposure of individuals' personal information connected to the DOG's firearm dashboards. A spokesperson for the office told the Reload, "Any unauthorized release of personal information is unacceptable. We are working swiftly to address the situation and will provide additional information as soon as possible." Yeah, it's just sucks all around, because once it's out there on the internet, it's forever out there on the internet. And you would imagine it's just like, how many of these things can you sit there and do? It's just like, okay, it's like, Judy, log out, go on the website and see if you can get anybody's personal information. It's like, what does that take? To
Not
sit
much.
there,
I mean, yeah.
If you've ever done your own website, you log out, go on another browser, and you see if there's something that you left out there that was not for public eyes. And it's not like you don't have enough employees. You're basically the Bureau of Criminal Investigation or whatever, the Attorney General's office of the state of California.
Well, I think a lot of this, I think it probably gets chalked up into Hanlon's razor. You know, like, what do they say? Never attribute to malice what could be explained by stupidity.
Oh, I firmly
100%,
believe.
I think somebody needs to get sued. Somebody needs to lose their job, and somebody needs to get sued.
I very believe it's malice. Most malice.
Do you think so? Do you really think so?
I totally. Well, here's the deal. It's like, what's the best kind of malice? It's like the malice you can get away with. So it's like, damn it, Judy, you told me that it wasn't that you couldn't get any information. Oh, she was wrong. Whoops. Sorry. Like, we're trying.
Well,
and
in other news, LA County sheriffs or whatever just said they're no longer going to enforce the magazine bans
because they can't tell what they are anyway.
They can't tell. Yeah, and they haven't been enforcing it like forever anyway.
Yeah,
because anybody who's ever gone into California with a gun, especially after Freedom Week, they're just like, yeah, we don't care unless they pick you up on a second offense, and even then, the second offense sometimes they're not going to tag you anyway. But Chris, I would be talking to an attorney, because I'm convinced at this point that somebody's going to get sued for that, because that's not cool. And not just like, hey, we accidentally released people's like concealed carry or something like that. They actually gave like addressing to know where you live to go get the guns. That's not good.
Yeah.
Especially now, if a person, they've given all this information, and if somebody can prove that a person used that database that was released to then go steal a gun, which was then used to kill somebody, somebody's in trouble big time.
Well, I think the California Rifle and Pistol Association is already kind of pursuing something like that, and all that's going to take is discovery. It's a damn public server. You're going to have some jackass send an email to Judy saying, hey, kick it out. No, let's just do it for a little bit. And then they'll do it because, in their own sort of arrogance, they'll let some stuff like this happen. The other part is like Sheriff Villanueva down there in LA. He's a Democrat, but he's basically turned like the policies of the LA City Council have turned him like almost like into full on Republican. Like they asked him to get rid of all his unvaccinated sheriffs, and he was just like, no, we don't have enough now.
We don't have enough, guys.
Most of them have already had it. Even if they did get it, guess what? They're gonna live. And they're going to come back and work. You know why they're going to come back to work? Because we need sheriffs. That's why we're going to do it. So, no, we're not doing that. And so, like, everyone's been kind of, like, gaslit into the fact of, like, there's plenty of, like, regular Democrats. I like to listen to a show called Reasonable Doubt with Adam Carolla and Mark Garagos. Mark Garagos.
That's really good.
That's
a good show.
Yeah. Mark Garagos is one of the best guys ever. The gunman in the LA heist, that robbery heist where they had the AK-47s, the gunman that got shot in the legs and died from like the 70 shots in his legs, and they roughed him up a bit and the ambulance didn't show up on time. Like Mark Garagos represented his mom and sued the LA Police Department and got like a big reward for her. He's represented Colin Kaepernick. And this is that guy. He's representing Michael Jackson, Colin Kaepernick, like defense lawyer for the Stars, as blue as they can possibly be. He's tired of the crap too. Like everyone, all the regular Democrats are tired of everyone just jumping the shark over there. Like bees are considered fish in California.
Seriously?
Yes.
Seriously?
Environmental protection, under the laws, like bees are considered fish. and that's how they protect some of these areas. Like, it is nuts. It
I
is
sure do
nuts.
love California, but man alive, sometimes those guys are nutty.
I just want to go to Knott's Berry Farm, have some good Mexican food, and carry a pistol. Like, that's all I want to do in California. It's like the 3 things I want to do. That's it. Anyways.
Well, fortunately, you can now, so you're good in the hood.
Yeah. Yeah, shall issue, baby. Shall
Yes.
issue. I doubt they're going to get reciprocity or constitutional carry now, but we know that constitutional carry does save lives because
and
of Mr.
we all
Dicken.
know that every state is constitutional carry if you're not a bitch.
It's true. You can be like I always like watching Heat, because I just kind of wonders, like, how does Robert De Niro go carrying a full-size USP 45 at the beginning of the movie, and then he's like, I gotta slim this down. I'll carry a full-size P220 in 45. Concealed carry. When men were men and they wore jackets. Wear jackets, carry big guns. Anyway, thanks for downloading, listening, subscribing. Thanks for doing all this stuff. We miss Steve.
Yes, we do.
If you're listening, Steve, we missed you this week. It would have been fun. Anyways, thanks.
Apparently, Kenny didn't miss you because he didn't say anything.
He didn't say a damn
He was shaking
thing.
his head. That was
mean,
awkward.
It's okay. I mean, he's probably having more fun.
So, yeah, for all those people, thanks for downloading, listening, subscribing. I'm Tom Nelson for Robert Wyatt and Kenny Terry. Hold on. Bid you peace, love, and soul. Oh, wow, how the freak. I hate
only been doing this
every
for
like 30 every
episodes.
30 episodes. I completely lose it.
You're supposed to know this, Tom.
I just lose it. Like, I just started thinking. All right, for Robert Wyatt, Kenny Terry, I'm Tom Nelson, bidding you peace, love, and soul as we depart into the open waters of the sea of life on a little tugboat we like to call the PARAcast.
Good night, everybody.
Toot toot.
Man, what a stutter! I feel
Good
like I forgot
job,
the
Tom.
I forgot the lyrics to my own hit. Like, that was that. But now I don't have a microphone where I put it out to the audience. I'm like, you guys sing it, and then I'm like, I'll get back on track. Anyways.
You ever have this weird thought, like, what if Phoenix ever actually heard of this show, and then they come in, they're like, we don't like this.
Oh my God, we're gonna get sued. We're gonna lose all the episodes. All the episodes. New album coming out. Alpha Zulu. Anyways, see you guys later.
All right, hey, make sure you get this stuff uploaded. What do you want to call this thing?
I want to call it. Hold on. Let me pause the